We're going live. Oh, we're live now.
Pokemon market manipulation, the Japanese 151 disaster.
Oh
Sounds familiar,
man,
but it sounds good.
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Thank you guys all so much for stopping by. If you don't already know, which you probably do, Tuesdays are the days where Alex and I talk about everything going on in the Pokemon market. But of course, before we jump into it and do that, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. I sound so cheesy right now. And if you're interested in getting Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, and so much more at wholesale prices, make sure to check the link down in the description below. And if you ever have any questions or want to be a part of the community, make sure to join the Discord. Link is also down in the description below. But anything you want to say before we get rolling, baby?
No, man, I'm ready for this.
You're ready for this? You're ready to talk about the market manipulation that's going on right now?
Apparently.
All right, let's have you lead off then.
What are we going to talk about being manipulated?
I mean, well, you're here's the deal, right? You've been kind of the one that's been, I feel like, spearheading the charge about the downfall of the just the Japan market overall. So that's where we got to start, baby. Come on now.
I mean, here's the thing. It's like maybe I'm wrong about it. It's just, I mean, if anyone saw my live stream, I just see a lot of similarities between that and vintage, and vintage in 2021, where it spiked to all-time highs that we've never seen before. It crashed, and a lot of it's remained very stagnant, and none of it, like, I don't think, maybe there's some random cards out there, but basically none of it has seen its all-time highs from the spike during 2021 again. And I just think people get this mindset, and it's repeated so much in the community that people believe it, is that, like, well, if something hit a price before, it's going to eventually hit that price again. And that might be true for like normal sets, like a normal, Lost Origin gets reprinted, things like that. But we were in an intense bubble in Japanese the past couple of years. And so there is chances that, like, not saying 151, but like some of those waifus we were seeing go for tens of thousands of dollars, some of the box price spikes we've seen, like, guys, there is a world where you just never see the all-time highs and some of that stuff again. And so, people that like, when they're like holding on for dear life, like, if I hold long enough, it'll all come back. It's like, you can find stocks in the stock market that have never recovered since 2008. Some went bankrupt, some are still around, just never recovered. You can see it in real estate where areas just kind of go out of favor and they kind of get run down, and house prices never recover, even in good markets. And you can see it in Pokemon and their TCGs. Like, sometimes things just don't always recover to their all-time highs. And so I get going into 151, how popular it is, but like, spreading your wings like through all these Japanese sets that are beat up, thinking they're all going to recover eventually, they might not. That's all I'm saying.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. 151 is never going to recover. It's going to the dumpster fire, pits of hell. Alex is bearish. Everything's crashing. No, I know exactly what you mean. And before I kind of touch point on an example, I feel like, which is good. Not only good to talk about, but it'll be a good transitioning point. As far as it goes with 151 right now, I obviously have talked about it and said it feels like a very free tendies play. And although I am in agreement of that, I want to first and foremost say I haven't bought any yet. And the reason why is because the amount of times I've heard people say, I just want to get in when it's 110. I just want to get in when it's sub 100. I just want to get in when it's sub 90. And now it's in the 80s of where people are buying it for. For me personally, I want to wait until we can kind of see where the bottom is, right? If that results in the price slightly going up before I can get in, and I'm not getting at the absolute low because I'm not trying to, predict a falling knife, then that's completely fine by me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is one of those situations where, hypothetically speaking, it could never go up to its all-time high. I like to believe that that's a possibility, but it's a play more or less that I'm looking at from the perspective of, let's say that it just gets, 50% away from its all-time high. Let's say that instead of it hitting like 200, right, it hits like 150, or maybe let's say it hits like 120. At that price point, you're happy if you're picking it up right now or lower. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I feel like a good example of that, and this will kind of be the transition point. We talked about this a little bit before stream, Hidden Fates. Hidden Fates is one of those specialty sets that was selling for over $300 in ETB Then it got printed. Prices went down to as low as into the $80. It did get its rebound, right? Which was at, I think, for the longest time, 140, 150. Now we're seeing it like 170, 180. But that like bounce that occurred kind of had it sitting at around that price point for the longest time. And it's now after like, what is it, 3 years? It's finally starting to slowly go up. But I guess to my point on that is, everyone is saying Hidden Fate's one of the best sets of all time. If a set like that in English gets a reprint that wasn't even that heavy and it still is struggling on its overall performance, you kind of have to wonder how that's going to potentially lead into 151. Obviously, like I said before, if you got Hidden Fates at 80 or $100, you'd be super stoked right now. So it's always a good pickup in that regard. But ultimately, you're not saying to yourself, I was picking this up because I thought I was going to go to $300 the next day. You have to be able to take all of that with a grain of salt when looking at the previous highs.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they're newer to the hobby, right? I mean, if you look at the numbers, right, a lot of people are in and out of hobbies within 2 or 3 years, and so it's really easy to look at 151 and be like, no, you guys don't get it. This is different. This is different than anything else that came before. And the fact is, it could, but it's like you'd almost be almost dumb to not look back at past data of other like things that have happened. And I get it. Hidden Fates isn't Japanese, and it's a boost ETB. It's not a booster, all those different things. But the fact remains is Hidden Fates, that was like the best thing you could possibly own in the hobby back then. And so coming, it's like to see what happened with that. If you don't try to draw any parallels to what's going on with like reprints and like the market contracting in Japan right now, I think you're just kind of burying your head in the sand. So it's like, yeah, I think it's going to do well. And honestly, I'm not saying 151 is not going to be $200 a box again. Like, not by any means. I think it can. My issue is I'm scared of people applying that logic to every other set in Japanese right now, like going all the Sword and Shield sets, Scarlet Violet sets, and being like, oh my gosh, these are all so low. This is all a buying opportunity. Everything's going to come back. It's like, again, going back to that being 2 or 3 years into the hobby now, guys, Japanese market wasn't like that before. This was all new in this bubble. Like, you didn't see all the regular mainline sets going to the moon like we saw in the last couple of years. So just be careful. Just pump the brakes and look around and, take it slow.
Yeah, I mean, you've got multiple examples of that within English, obviously, with Vivid Voltage. Vivid Voltage at one point went up to 240 during COVID, and that was just because of the supply. Got its print once, went down to like 120, then came up to 150, got another print, went down to 100 after it got up to 150. Battle Styles pre-sold for 150, got a print, dropped down to 100, then went up to 120, then went down to 75, something around that price point. So like, there's examples of sets that you've seen historically that, oh my gosh, it went up to this point, therefore like it's a good buy now. Like, you have to always take that with a grain of salt. Now 151 I think is one of those situations where I look at it closer to like a Lost Origin, where Lost Origin being a really strong set and like the strength of the performance has really been because of the strength of the set, not just because there's been a lack of supply or because of any sort of other like ulterior factors. And so that's why I like it more so, because if you're comparing it from like Silver Tempest to Obsidian, or Obsidian Flame, Silver Tempest to Lost Origin, Silver Tempest obviously was one that was performing pretty well right around Lost Origin, but you didn't see that same like kind of strength of progression in the same way Lost Origin did, which was one of the main reasons why I was like, if I were to choose one of the two, which one would I prefer? Well, Lost Origin was one that seems to have just performed much stronger. It had a lot higher of a floor for start, right? Lost Origin came out the gate pre-selling at like 105, 110, whereas Silver Tempest, you were able to pick up in the like high 80s to low 90s. So it was already coming out stronger. And then the point in which 150 was hit for both sets, Lost Origin hit it much, much faster. So you just have to be able to pay attention to these factors when kind of looking at the volatility and seeing how that kind of performance happens. But, there is a different factor that is being taken into consideration with this too, which is, the Japan bubble. Is this kind of the end of it? Because I think I've already told this before on a different one of our streams, but I remember when I was first delving into Japanese product in general, it was during EV Heroes. And it was crazy to see because I was looking at what Evolving Skies could have potentially do. This was before Evolving Skies came out. And I went in to buy EV Heroes and I was like, holy crap, EV Heroes is selling for $36 a booster box. That's insane. But that was normal during that time for the market. And so you had a whole bunch of people coming in and looking at the price and saying, wow, booster boxes in, English are like $100+. That's so crazy expensive. Whereas Japanese product is like in the 30s, in the 40s for a booster box. Like there was that kind of disconnect where people were overinflating the value. I've used this example before, like Californians moving to like cheaper areas. It just is like it's cheap for your market, but then when you go into another market, you overinflate it past it, and then all of a sudden that hype dies out. And then before you know it, it comes back down to the reality of what was overvalued.
Yeah, and I mean, people always like think, not much as you, but me, like I'm the Japanese hater when it comes to this stuff. So I mean, even going back to like the English side of things, like guys, there's possibilities some of those waifus that spiked in English and like Sun and Moon and stuff will never hit those highs again. Like the waifu boom was like something we hadn't seen before. It really came from the Japanese side of things because in English it isn't that way. I mean, you can even look at some of the newer Scarlet Violet sets where the waifus rank a lot higher on the set lists than they do on the English sets. So like that's sort of getting back to normal. And so like there's some waifu cards that probably hit crazy spikes during that time in English that may not see those highs again, where a lot of the tag teams, the actual Pokemon may actually rebound and outperform all those waifus again in the future. So the market's always shifting, and just to always think something was higher, now it's lower, so that means it's a buy and it's going to go back up. You buy low, you sell high. It's just not always that easy, right?
Yeah, there's always variables you got to take into consideration with all of this because you could easily get burnt, like left holding the bag on an item that was a previous price, and then all of a sudden you're hoping it's there and it never does,
Yeah.
But so, I mean, kind of going back to 151 and more particular, talking about hidden fates. I mean, let's have a conversation about it. What is your kind of overall thoughts on just the progression of specialty sets going forward?
Man, you're gonna get me in trouble now.
Mm.
I mean, we talked about it beforehand. It's too early to tell this, but it's definitely something that's on my radar in the next, I would say, 3 years. I think 3 years is a good amount of time because 3 years is going to allow us to go through the 30th anniversary. 3 years is going to allow us to see how 151 and Crown Zenith age. And it's going to continue to give us more time to see if Hidden Fates can start to come back. Obviously, all the other specialty sets in Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. And so what I'm talking about is we already known ETBs have started to underperform booster boxes in Sword and Shield era. And like I always says, it doesn't mean there's no opportunity there. I mean, there's opportunity at certain points, at certain price points, in certain ages. But we're definitely seeing specialty sets underperforming. And it doesn't matter how strong they are. Crown Zenith 151, that's going to show. But like, you can look at all of them. Champions Path, Pokemon Go, Celebration, Shining Fates, Hidden Fates. Unless you go way back into like Sun and Moon XY, where they printed those ETBs so much less. And it was kind of before the whole boom and tons of demand hit and the hobby grew. And so there wasn't as much supply of that stuff to really meet the demands of the hobby. Those are the only ETBs, especially sets you see do really well. Ever since like that 2019 time, especially sets ETBs perform really, really, kind of poorly. And so in 3 years, I think, depending on how 151 is aged and Crown Zenith is aged and Celebrations does and stuff, that'll really tell me is if it still makes sense to move into those sets for long-term holds or just completely cut them out, enjoy them, open them. If you can make flips out of the gate, because you have margins, do it. Maybe the specialty ETBs on the Pokemon Center will do well, but it might just make sense to go to the booster box sets.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you guys know what my thoughts are on specialty ETBs with Pokemon Center exclusive. I'll just kind of start off with that. Crown Zenith, 151, Celebrations, like they all kind of crushed it, right? Obviously, Pokemon Go, a little bit different. But the performance of those have been fantastic. But if we're looking at sets that are specialty sets, there has been a consistent pattern where Pokemon is always going to reprint the ETBs first and foremost before it reprints any of the other miscellaneous items, right? Like, sure, with Hidden Fates, you did have the reprint of the tins, and they did like some GameStop reprint with the pin collection for the Mew and Mewtwo's, but like ultimately it was the ETBs what they reprinted. Shining Fates is another example of that. They reprinted it back right before it went out of rotation in 2022, and then there was another reprint that also happened for it as well around the time that Vivid Voltage and Darkness Ablaze got reprints for their ETBs. So you've seen Crown Zenith massive ETBs. Hey, 151 got a reprint. What were the two things that were reprinted? UPCs and the ECBs. Like, these are items that the Pokemon Company is not afraid to like reprint like crazy. And so
And to add into that before you keep going,
yeah.
Shining Fates, Vivid Voltage, Darkness Blaze, all those ETBs were much higher than Crown Zenith was before its reprint. Those were all like $100 plus ETBs. I mean, Vivid Voltage may have been a little less, but like the other ones, they were $100 plus.
To be fair, I will say with that, they were that expensive because it was during the time in which there was just the initial wave of Vivid and Darkness and there was 0 reprint waves. That's why Vivid the first time around went up to 240 and then it got its print. But it was about a year later until the ETB had the same thing happen to it, which is what caused it to kind of accrue in value. Kind of like what you saw with Rebel Clash, right? Why, like if you would see the price of Vivid and Darkness ETBs be at what Rebel Clash is right now if it weren't for that. And so like taking that into consideration, obviously looking at Crown Zenith as a set, I'm a big fan of Crown Zenith as an overall set. I think it's one of the best sets that they've ever made, but that doesn't change the fact that supply is going to play a huge role in this entire thing, right? And so as long as they continue to keep pushing and pushing the supply of these specialty sets, it makes it a really hard argument to like try and go heavy into a lot of these specialty sets unless we have any sort of like indication that there's not going to be a ton coming. And don't get me wrong, like I am sitting on Crown Zenith right now, right? Like there's a decent amount of Crown Zenith that I am sitting on. There's some 151 I'm sitting on because we can see with 151, for example, the strength of the set and how even with the reprints have happened that there is a possibility of it, just getting eaten up immediately. And so being able to still at least hedge in that regard. But that doesn't mean when I see a set like that, I'm immediately going all in because you never know how long it's going to take before that specialty set does go up in value because unlike booster boxes, which are extremely volatile, ETBs usually take a lot more time to kind of curate and go up in value. So the ones that I typically like the most are the ones like Celebrations, are the ones like Vivid Voltage. They're no longer in print. They're no longer in rotation. They've already shown strength historically speaking. And odds are they're just waiting for the time to mature before they can come up in value. Whereas you have these other sets like Crown Zenith, which I will be picking a lot more of up in the future, but not at this moment in time while it's still pretty much in the full rotation, has a possibility of getting a reprint. And, if it does, sure, there's a possibility I say to myself, oh, it gets a reprint. I can go pick it up for 30, $35. But how long is it going to realistically stay at that price point before it rebounds? I'd much rather wait until there is some sort of, price rebound before I even want to consider because it could be good, but it could also be one I end up sitting on for much longer than I would like to because it takes so much longer for it to actually gain in value.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a lot like, I based my channel on, right? Where I really started out, and back when I started, it was kind of a unpopular opinion to really talk about modern cards and modern boxes to being, kind of a superior investment. And it's because the market shifted, right? It shifted from the vintage to the more modern stuff. And like even Rudy, Alpha Investments, talking about it in Magic right now. He's made multiple videos talking about how everything's shifting away from, vintage and the reserved list. And it's really going towards modern Magic. And so, guys, market shifts happen. I mean, we could have market shifts where people shift away from ETBs and specialty sets. And it's really all about the booster boxes. And so it's just good to remain fluid and understand that like markets can change. Don't go all in and think things are going to be the same forever. And it's just good to keep these in your mindset, like to think about it, watch it. It's nothing to like panic and have a knee jerk reaction to and like dump everything or not. It's just to pay attention and understand, like to watch where the money's flowing, and you might have to adjust what you do over time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100% agree. We'll kind of see what ultimately ends up happening. I mean, I, I'm still a fan of ETBs. I don't want to just say that. I mean, I've been a very big advocate for ETBs through the entire process of the channel. I mean, it's hard not to when you look at the history of all the other ones, but still, at the end of the day, right? The supply that we're getting nowadays for Sword and Shield compared to Sun and Moon is a lot different, but that doesn't change the fact that these are items that we won't really know the true answer to until most of them are like, 3, 4, 5 years away at this point from where we are. Then we can really see, because who knows, right? You could see this ETB, like a vivid voltage one that's in like the 40s, and then all of a sudden 3 years from now it goes up to like $200, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a insane return. That's a
That
5x.
seems like a lot.
That's a 5x, right? But
Even
if
if it
you
went to 80, I'd be happy in 3
but
years.
if you look at Vivid where it is right now for the booster, right, which it's sitting at, I think it's like 140 right now. Last time I checked, maybe 150.
Yeah, that's about right.
Actually, I wanna quickly check just so that I can make sure I can use this exact example, right? So Vivid Voltage boosters are going for the low 40s. Yep, and then or sorry, ETBs are going for the low 40s, and then the boosters are going for 140 exactly. So if you say to yourself in the same instance, right, like 140 times 5x, it's $700. And the next 3 years, like do I think that it could get to 700? Do I think an ETB could get to 200? I think both is possible, right? But ultimately, we won't really know because if you look at Cosmic, if you look at Team Up, if you look at all the Sun and Moon ones, there's obviously been such an exponential growth with the boosters recently, but it's hard to say because the supply was so much different back then for both items. So there's just too much fog up in the air for me to really, say one is better than the others. But it feels safer knowing volatility at least is in the boosters in the short term.
I will also caution everyone on trying to compare moves on things in short time periods, right? Like I feel like in this hobby, and it's almost like the competitive thing kicks in where people want to like compete with others to like see who does better on their investments. But these markets never move linear. Things don't just like steadily rise forever. And so you could hold something and it might be stagnant for 2 years, and then year 3 it doubles, like literally 100% return. And then it's like, well, I made 33% a year. Whereas like those first 2 years, someone could have been like, I made 15% on my investments. I compounded interest. I'm up 40% of my investments. And the next year they're like, I'm up 60% now. How are you doing? It's like, well, I'm up 100% now. Well, you didn't make anything for the last 2 years. Yeah, I know. This is how collectibles work. And I think that's the issue people don't understand. And then when that does happen, there's a tendency when you hear all the market manipulation and, oh, this isn't real, people are buying it out. And it's just like, no, none of that's true. The truth is, this is just how collectibles move. There'll be times of stagnation, times of booms, times of pullbacks, times of, everything will consolidate again. It'll run again for whatever reason, whether it be news or just, interest goes to that, supply, Pokemon comes out with a new game, draws people back to XY. There's a million reasons why it happens, but there's nothing wrong with those kind of market moves. And to try to worry about how each one of your investments is performing every 6 months or every year and comparing it to other investments, you're going to get in a lot of trouble because you're going to find yourself jumping back and forth and trying to be a day trader, and you'll end up losing in the long run.
Yeah, no, 1000%. Also, one thing I also want to touch on, because I feel like people are taking what I'm saying out of context. In reference to Vivid Voltage as an example, I'm not saying that it's going to hit 5x up, but I'm saying if you look at historically the same patterns that happen within Sun and Moon, I'm saying if it were to follow that, this is something that it would look like, right? Because like the argument that's being made obviously about the newer sets being stronger, or I should say the second half of the Sword and Shield, obviously alternate arts look amazing, like there's no denying that, right? But if you look at like one of the weaker sets, which is just a set revolving around one strong character that people enjoy, which is Celestial Storm, for example, obviously you had the waifu effect kind of come in with that, but realistically it was just, for the longest time, it was a rainbow Rayquaza, and there was nothing really else that people cared about within the set. Like, okay, you could get a rainbow scissor, but like, there wasn't anything crazy. Now, since the waifu, obviously the value went up, but more importantly, the point I'm making with this, the ETB is selling for $300 and the booster is selling for $850. So to say that like, oh, because it doesn't have alternate arts or doesn't have these like cool art designs, therefore it can't perform extremely strong, right? Even some of the like weaker sets that are like not performing as well. You've got like Forbidden Lights almost at $500 and the ETB at around 150.
And that's
So
got absolutely nothing really.
yeah. I mean, that's a terrible set, arguably. Like, you've got so many of these sets. I mean, Lost Thunder. Lost Thunder is another good one. And Lost Thunder got a resupply for their where the price was at $700 and then went down to 300, and then it's now pushing 700 again with the ETB about to hit 200. So like there's instances in where you'll have sets where it'll be like, oh man, it has one cool strong character like a Lugia, like a Pikachu, like a Rayquaza, that have shown historically that they are fan favorite characters, and then nothing else within it is really that strong. Like, sure, if you're a Mimikyu fan, like, yeah, like I'm not gonna like hate on it. Like, Mimikyu is a character that people like, but it's not like a standalone character that's gonna, carry a set. You're gonna have a possibility of the just curated like nature as the supply goes down, that the value of it is going to go up as with everything. And so it'll be interesting to see what that kind of is going to look like over time. Who knows, obviously, where the price of ultimately the ETB in specific for Vivid Voltage is going to be at, or if you want to talk about the booster. But, like I said, the point that I'm more or less making with all of this is that in the next, 3 to 5 years, it would not surprise me if we saw a drastic shift where a lot of these sets that are currently out of rotation start to go pop up in supply, regardless of whether they have an alternate art in it, because supply is playing such a huge factor. I mean, Rebel Clash, do you think Rebel Clash is a hugely desired set? No, but it's worth what it is because they have such a short supply of it, not because the demand is super crazy. So you have to take both factors into consideration. The only thing that demand is just diminishing the supply faster. That's kind of the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go back to XY even look at like Steam Siege, like literally nothing to chase. And I mean, it's still going for almost $400 a box now. I mean, here's the thing too, is, especially for more of the like vintage, like collector side, it's always been a reason why Modern's doing good, right? It's like before the boom, it was always, well, it was the evolutions in Pokemon Go that really, primed it up. And then like the boom happened, and it's like, oh, well, that's just because of, Logan Paul and the free money and COVID. The good part about this time, 2022, 23, 24, is there's nothing going on, right? There's no Black Swan events. There's no reason for these sets to be propped up. And so the only thing people can say now is, well, it's manipulation, it's buyouts, it's things like that. It's like, guys, eventually you're going to have to just understand that sealed product over time, as crazy as it sounds, people do open it. The attrition from the market's real. More and more disappears in permanent collections. It does run out after a reprint stop. It does run out. I mean, how do you think we got 10,000 plus Moon? How do you think we got 15,000 Moonbryons on the market? Because millions and millions of booster boxes and packs were opened. That's how they got there. And so as time goes on, these boxes just rise. And yes, of course, the best sets are going to remain the best and be the highest price, but it doesn't mean that sets without the greatest hits are all going to remain zero gain. Like, it doesn't mean that they can't grow to $200, $300, $400 booster boxes the way that, we're seeing Crimson Invasion, Steam Siege, Forbidden Light, these weaker sets do.
Yeah, you literally just touched on what I was about to mention, is like it's just basic supply and demand economics. Doesn't really matter if it's a set you love or a set you hate. Like, take the numbers out of the equation. At the end of the day, the value of these items are going to go up. We don't have a crystal ball to say how much it's going to go up, but what we can do is we can take a look at just the history of what things have done, right? And kind of go from there, right?
Now, I agree saying Vivid Voltage and Darkness Ablaze are probably going to be the two lower value sets in the era at this point. But
yeah,
we can agree on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're looking at within the just general Sword and Shield era, right? Obviously, Rebel Clash and Sword and Shield base are ones that had a very low supply, and there wasn't a reprint for the boosters. And for the ETBs, there was one for base, but there wasn't for Rebel Clash. That's why they are where they are right now, right? Now, looking at the rest of the first half of the Sword and Shield era, what sets remain that are non-alternate art sets? That's literally just Vivid Voltage, Darkness Ablaze for standard booster box. Obviously, you've got Shining Phase and Champion's Path, but those are specialty sets. So we're talking about booster box sets here. So, going back to the point that I'm making with all of this is those are the only real ones you can look at and say, okay, it's not a, alternate art set and it's hasn't performed extremely strong yet compared to its counterparts, which had a very low supply. So once again, not saying it's gonna like 5x, but what I am saying is that if you look at sets that people saw and said, "Oh man, Forbidden Light garbage, Celestial Storm garbage, Lost Thunder garbage," like all these sets garbage. They don't have tag teams in it. They don't have character rares. They don't have all these things. I mean, they went up in value. So who knows how much it's going to go up in value? I'm not here to play that game, but I am here to say that, a lot of those I mean, just literally Lost Thunder, right? Lost Thunder, you could go pick up for the longest time in like the 70s back in the day. So it's 10x in the time that it's in right now, right? Hell, when it was shortly after COVID happened and before it got its resupply and it was, up at $600, that realistically took about like 5 years for it to get to that point, which seems like a long time, but for a return of almost 10x in like a 5-year period, like that's crazy volatility. That's crazy volatility. And it was something that, of course, took time for it to get to that point. And so you never know with one of these things is kind of ultimately what I'm saying at like, you can never predict it's going to happen exactly in 3 years. It's going to happen exactly in 4 or 5 years. It just takes time. And when it does, though, you're definitely going to wish you didn't miss the boat on the price, 2xing, 3xing, 4x, 5, whatever that kind of looks like.
And honestly, I expect moves like Evolving Skies. Like everyone sees that and they freak out. Those are normal moves in this hobby. As crazy as that is to say, that's normal. Like sitting at $400 for a while, then all of a sudden jumping to 700. That's how these move. Like Vivid Voltage could sit in the 130s to 150s for a while still, and then all of a sudden you could look and it's $220 a box in like a few months, and everyone thinks, "Oh my gosh, manipulation!" No, it's just how it moves. And so just because things don't happen overnight or things aren't moving at the rate you think doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It doesn't mean there's like 100% something wrong. Now, if we have the same discussion in 3 or 5 years and it's still not okay, then something's wrong. I get it.
Yeah, it's like Evolving Skies, right? Evolving Skies is a set that in no way is comparable to a set without alternate arts. But to say that you expect it to hit the price that it's at now in like several years after its release, no one predicted that. And if you said that, then like that would have just been crazy to think because it denies the history of what has been just the performance of volatility within Pokemon. Evolving Skies is literally standalone doing something that no other set has done before in terms of its overall growth within the short period of time that the set's been out. I mean, it just now finally is going out of rotation after it being a set that's been out for less than 3 years now. I mean, it came out in 2021 in August, so it's coming up on 3. Like that's crazy to think about, right? And not to mention as well, taking a look and seeing where all these alternate art sets are performing and how volatile their growth has been with Fusion Strike, a set that people for the longest time have been saying is not anywhere close to Chilling. Chilling's so much better than Fusion, blah, blah. But yet Fusion is performing, currently speaking, better than Chilling. Doesn't matter of your opinion. I don't think it's a hot take to say that you could be surprised to see what a lot of these sets are going to do in the next 3 to 5 years, where there's no way it's going to 3x. There's no way it's going to 5x. There's no way it's going to we don't know, man. We don't know. I'm just saying, don't rule it out.
Well, by the way, objectively, Chilling is a better set than Fusion Strike because the singles value is like 50% higher than Fusion Strike singles values, which is crazy. It just shows the popularity of the species of the Pokemon that are the top hits actually carry the set more than singles value at this point. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's interesting to see.
But I've been reading some of the comments. I wanted to ask you some questions, right? Because you've been around pretty much as long as I have.
Yeah.
Remember back in Sun and Moon, even like going into Sun and Moon, in the middle of Sun and Moon, do you remember how it was the same way as now, where every new set people were negative about?
Oh yeah, of course. That's how
every new set. And I think people are, because I see comments in the chat talking about, we're in a new era and losing people and no one likes these sets. Guys, here's the thing.
New
So
era.
sometimes
What?
you need to step out of the Pokemon investing sphere and just go watch some like collector videos or openings. Like I've really done this more lately. Guys, the investing sphere is some of the only people that are like this. It's just the cool kid thing to be negative in investing. It's cool to always say, "Oh, this next set sucks. Oh, everything sucks. Scarlet Violet sucks. All these cards suck." It's the cool thing. Like it's always cool in investing to always be bearish. It's not cool to be bullish, right? And people will disguise that as saying, "No, we're just being realistic." It's like, no, you're being bearish. Let's be honest. But if you go to the collecting side, people like these sets. People like the cards. They like the new arts. They're enjoying it. They enjoy pulling them. They're still ripping the packs at mass. They're buying them in pack breaks. Like there's a huge divide right now. I've talked about it a lot, but between the investor side and the collector side, because a good portion of this community still loves these cards. It's just the investor side is just so negative about every single thing that's released. And I just wanted to get your take because I remember it being that way in XY and early Sun and Moon before like the boom started. It was always kind of this way, was it not?
Well, I've been saying this for the longest time. You have a lot of people that are coming back into the hobby, or you have a lot of people that were not following the way in which the market trends have always worked. And they always are like, I mean, this is just with everything, right? Oh man, the market's so bearish. Look at the price of booster boxes right now. That's crazy. But it's like, okay, booster boxes have always been a low margin commodity. The demand for a new set or the hate for new sets overall in a new era has been like a consistent trend. I mean, hell, even if you look at like, and we talk about this so often, the first sets that are typically released within every new generation, it always starts with one of the three being a Charizard set since going back to XY. So it's like one of these things where history is just continuing to repeat itself, where you have this just influx of hate going into a new generation. And then over time, people start to find appreciation for that generation and value goes up for it. Like I remember when you had the release of, Sun and Moon coming out with Shining Legends, the disdain for Shining Legends was insane. You had like flash sales up the wazoo at Walmart for like Shining Legends product. I mean, heck, even going into COVID, I remember I would go into COVID and they would be buy one, get one free ping collections for Shining Legends. Like where you could literally get the packs for like $2, right? It was insane to see the value that you were getting from that. So
Unified Minds after the reprint everywhere, like high 80s.
yeah, no, it was insane. And so it just goes to kind of show you where it's just once again the same kind of market nature that we have as always, where, oh, booster boxes are at wholesale $70. They're selling for 90. Everyone hates Pokemon. Oh, they're, wholesale, they're at 90. Everyone's, buying it at 100 to 110. It must be because everyone hates Pokemon. It's like, no, this is literally how Pokemon's always been. It's been very low margin, very high volume sales. It's how you become successful if you're trying to be a store or have a successful Pokemon business. But doesn't necessarily mean that the demand is going away, right? I mean, Pokemon, for God's sake, is literally still hitting records when it comes to their reports on how much they're generating revenue. And we've had already a full year of Scarlet and Violet product. Like, let's not forget this, guys. Like, we're on to SV6 right now. Like, we already had SV5. We're on to SV6. And Pokemon did once again break another record. We'll see if they do it again. Obviously, who knows how much that's going to change now that they don't have any sort of Sword and Shield product. We're anticipating they're going to reprint, but I don't think that's something that the Pokemon company is saying like they're really concerned about, because it's just a continuation of what's been happening for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. Like, especially seeing like some of these Scarlet Violet cards in PSA 10s end at $40 and $50 at auction, like special illustration rares. And I'm just like, I think there's going to come a time where we're going to turn on YouTube and it'll probably, who knows when it'll be, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now. And you'll hear a completely different story. Oh my gosh, these sets are so good. Oh, we're going to open Paldea Evolve tonight, guys. And everyone's going to be like, no way. And then they're going to pull some of those cards and be like, that's such a great card. It's like, dude, you said it was such a bad card 2 years ago. What happened?
Well, and what's even funnier too is what you can like, if you don't look at prices, how that'll affect your mindset. Cause like I remember when I first was getting back into the hobby, right? And I was like really, really opening product. It was during Sun and Moon. Like I did open a little bit of XY, but I wasn't a fan of Evolutions. I wasn't a fan of Steam Siege because it didn't resonate with me. But I know that's different because I'm not a Gen 1er. And I remember when I got back into Sun and Moon, I was like pulling tag team cards. I was pulling rainbow cards. I was pulling like heck, I remember when Burning Shadows came out, that was one of the coolest things for me. And I was like, "Oh my god, Burning Shadows. Like you can pull a rainbow Charizard. That's so sick." But ultimately at the end of the day, like if you look at it face value of like what the overall set is, it's a garbage set because I'm so deep in the weeds on this. Like I'm not like just a casual when it comes to this. This is what I do for a living. This is what I take intensely. And so I can look at it face value and say, this is what it looks like. But when I'm someone that was more casual into the hobby and I just heard they're coming out with rainbow Pokemon cards and one of them is going to be a Charizard, I thought that was one of the coolest things that they had ever done. And that was so revolutionary. But looking back on it, we're like, rainbow Charizard, it's not an alternate art. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
Well, no, 'cause
so funny to.
at that time, everyone was thirsting for that next rarity because in XY everything was too easy, and so
Yeah.
like that rarity level was what everyone loved. I think.
Yeah, no, 1000%. And there's always going to be something to kind of complain about when it comes to every new set. But ultimately, there's a large population of people that look at it differently, right? Like when you go and talk to kids, if those of you guys that do hang out at your local card shops, if any of you guys do that, they love the V cards. They love the EX cards. It doesn't matter if it's worth $1. To them, it's a shiny piece of cardboard. They think it's sick, right? Like people get so connected now to the price, especially us being all adults here, right? It's kind of what we are always valuing. Oh, I pulled a card, it's worth X amount. Like, sure, it's cool to appreciate the artwork. If the card's expensive versus not expensive, we can have a conversation of whether it's undervalued, overvalued. But kids aren't having that conversation. Kids are like, whoa, I pulled this card. It's only worth $1. It must be undervalued in my mind because I love it. Like, no, people are like, I love Pikachu. I pulled a Pikachu V card. Let's get hyped. You know, like there's just too much like disconnect, I feel like, within the community a lot of times when it comes to where the ultimate market and space is.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like knowing nothing about it. Like, it's kind of like if you took a bunch of cards from all the different eras of Pokemon and you put them in front of like kids or even people, like adults that had they've never known anything about Pokemon, and said like, pick your favorite ones. A lot of those cards would come from Scarlet, Violet, and Sword and Shield, most likely. Maybe some Sun and Moon, but it's like I mean, I know it's subjective, but it's pretty agreed upon that like the art is just it's great. It's so much better. It's what people want to see. Like, I mean, people still get excited to pull it. I mean, they're still collecting it. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know what people are expecting. There's only so much you can do on a piece of cardboard. And I guess at this point, people just want them to print a different Pokemon on that cardboard. Like, just give me another Umbreon and Espeon set. Just give me, some Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3s. And that way that can be a good set we can pump. Like, I think that's all we're waiting for right now. I don't think it's about the art or the hate for Scarlet and Violet or silver borders or any of that. I think it's just people just want those specific Pokemon they've been chasing on every single era to come this one, and so they can chase them here too.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy. Like you get back into the hobby, you get excited pulling a rainbow rare, and then people that have been in the hobby for a while are like, rainbow rares are nothing. Like, who cares about rainbow rares? It's like, it's like the difference between pulling a V versus a V full art versus a V Max versus a rainbow V Max versus a alternate art V Max. Like for a lot of people, like I obviously was a person that was like, move on to the rainbows. I think they're overplayed at this point. Let's get something better in there. But
to your point though, right? You're talking in terms of like you being super engaged and the online like investing space. Go to your point, go to a local card shop. You'll hear a completely different
rainbows
message.
are massive. Rainbows are massive in local card shops. Kids love rainbows. They think they're so sick.
And that's the best thing I can tell people is like, just it's good. Get all the advice, go watch all the investing channels, the business channels. That's great. But also from time to time, just try to step outside of it because you're going to see like a bright, sun shining, rainbow, everything's great, awesome world out there where, a lot of this investing business space is always doom and gloom. Everything sucks. So just try to get a little of both.
Are you telling our people to touch grass? Is that what I just heard you say, Alex?
I mean, dude, sometimes, I see some of this stuff and it brings you down just listening to it.
Yeah, you're on Twitter too much, dude. You should probably
I don't even have a Twitter. I couldn't handle that. I couldn't handle Twitter. I get
Oh,
enough from my own comment section and Discords. Like that's enough.
yeah. No, I feel you, man. I mean, I got into the business because I love Pokemon. I've been a huge fan of Pokemon. Everyone knows I will never shut up about Diamond and Pearl era product. It's always been my favorite. So I think it's super duper sweet. But you know, like there is a serious nature that you can take to it, but don't let it get ahead of yourself, you know. But
Yeah.
so we're going on 45 minutes now. I think it's a good time to start taking questions. So we'll take a look.
PM PST just left one. Take that one.
Hold on one second. Which question was just left?
The
Oh,
brand new
TBC.
comment. Yeah.
On topic kids adults, what have you guys talked about if Pokemon came out with the collector booster boxes like Magic the Gathering? Oh, that'd be sick, dude. That would be so sick. Those would be such a slam dunk if that happened. That would be such a slam dunk.
I mean, they're gonna have to. I think eventually they're gonna have to do something. I don't know if that looks like serialized or signature cards or first print or first edition unlimited or collector boxes, but eventually they're gonna have to do something for collectors the way that all these other card games are doing it, where there's actually cards that you can hit that are worth, $500, $1,000 out of the gate or plus, and it's actually a crazy hard chase, and they're not worried about, oh, every game player has to have this game piece in their hands. Like, I don't know. Like, I just think that eventually there's going to have to be something for the collectors and the casuals and players.
Yeah, it is definitely weird to see or think about, like, when you do look at all of the other TCGs, they all kind of have something going on right now, whereas like Pokemon doesn't. And now maybe you can say, oh, Pokemon hasn't had to do it, but at the end of the day, it's not more or less a have to do it. It's a, if they did, that would be crazy. So I would like to hope that in their mind that they're at least considering that, because like I don't know, like it'd be sick, like you said, to have a serialized or have any of these kind of things. Like, oh man, I would be so stoked.
Dude, I honestly, I don't see how they wouldn't make more money. Like, think about it. They could even print more product, like more than they're printing now, even with serialized cards, and it would probably still be over $100 a box. Like, it would still be great because people would still, they'd have a reason to continue to open and open and open and chase and chase and chase. Whereas now it's like, well, once a set ages like 6 months now, it's like, well, now all the hits kind of get watered down, and the best hit in the set's like $50, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, see, that's the hard thing, because, on the topic of, I don't see why they wouldn't do it, because they can make more money. Easily argument could be made on if they wanted to reprint Evolving Skies. Like, there's so many things
Well, no,
they could
because
do to make free money,
Well, no, because like I said, you'd lose as many people as most of the people think like, oh, Pokemon doesn't care about the secondary market. That's completely wrong. They would lose the market's trust if they started like doing stuff like that, I think. And if they lose the market's trust, like I said, Pokemon's not Magic the Gathering. It's not a player's hobby. It's a collector's hobby. And if you lose the trust of like the collectors who want value in their items, they don't want everything to be a game piece, and they want value in the investors and things like that, you'll end up like Bandai with all their old card games. Now, Bandai's fixed what they're doing with One Piece and the newer card games because they're not printing it into the ground and killing people. And if they continue that, it's going to remain strong. But if Pokemon does what Bandai used to do and just print everything into the ground where nothing value, they just keep throwing it and throwing it and throwing it until shove it down your throat till it's worthless, that's an issue. So, I don't know. I don't know if going back and printing like valuable sets like that just because you can is the right answer.
A part of me is like, yes, I agree. But then another part of me is like, if they did reprint like one of the high demand sets, realistically, how long would it take for it to rebound and go back up? Like how much would it hurt? How much would it hurt? Because let's say Evolving Skies gets reprinted tomorrow and the price tanks all the way down to 100. How long do you think it would take before it goes to $400?
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Well, or let's not even say it goes to 100. Let's say it drops down to 300. Like
it depends on how much, right? Like if every store got 5 cases, not that long.
Yeah.
If every store got a full run,
yeah. Oh, that'd be crazy. But yeah, I mean, that there is a lot that plays into that in the timing of it all, because there was a lot of hate for when Roaring Skies did get its reprint. It was right before rotation. Everyone was upset about it because they're like, what's the point? This was a set that obviously we were under the impression was not going to be, shipped out of rotation, and instead, or shipped with a reprint. We thought this was the end, and here we are now. So yeah, no, I mean, there could definitely be some trust to it, because the timing of when reprints happen, I feel like, is what ultimately makes people feel some type of way when it comes to the, how do I want to say this, the just, are they reprinting it because it's good for the market, it's good for the TCG, or are they reprinting it because they see it as a cash grab? So yeah, no, I mean, I can definitely see it to that extent. Okay, so here's another question. I want to go a little bit back because someone asked this pretty early on. Thoughts on Fusion Strike sleeved? I guess the hit rate aren't the same as the booster, but the same price per pack as a booster from Pokemon Center. Booster box from Pokemon Center. What? Wait, I'm so confused. I think what he's saying is, so he's saying that like with a Fusion Strike sleeve booster, right? It's like $4. 144 is the price of a booster pack if you divide it by 36 from a booster box, right? I think he's saying they're the same price, but the hit rates aren't the same. So what are our thoughts on just sleeve boosters in general? I think is what he's asking. Well, first and foremost, I kind of want to say the hit rates are the same. They don't, the thing is about boosters is, sure, boosters have like some semblance of guarantee that you can get like a certain type of rarity, but ultimately at the end of the day, like if you just took an average of the items over time as you get more granular, they're going to have the same hit rates. So people have this weird thing where like certain products are going to have higher hit rates than others, but ultimately the only time that's shown is if there's been print run errors. Like not everyone is saying, "Oh man, like Silver Tempest, packs have such a higher hit rate if you order them from the collector's chest, because like the collector's chests have higher hit rates." It's like, no, that was a print run error that happened where you had like god packs come from it. Like that's one thing you have to take into consideration. And then I think with just in general, like sleeve boosters, people do like to collect the blisters. They do think that it is something with like collecting all the artworks. It is something that is desirable as it becomes more expensive to collect the boosters. People want to still collect artworks, so they'll just buy one of each of the artworks on the blisters.
Yeah, and I'll just keep it really simple. You can do good on blister packs. They're definitely more desirable than loose packs, less desirable than a booster box. They do rise in value pretty well with the set. They are, however, a lot less liquid as time goes on, whether you sell them by like one of each artwork or you try to sell the case. So that's the only thing I'd be careful of, is like the size of positions you move into, because they can be a little harder and take a little more time to get rid of.
Yeah, no, 1000%. All right, let's see what another good question is to discuss. Was more likely double in price the fastest from the current price? Evolving Skies box or Japanese 151 box?
Well, okay, here's the problem. Here's the issue right here.
Yeah.
What's the price of a Japanese 151 box? Does it matter if like you buy it from some of these niche platforms? Does this Facebook count? Does Instagram count? Is it eBay pricing? What is it? Like, that's the issue. Like,
Yeah.
Is 120 the price right now? So are we saying 120 to 240, and there's still a reprint coming next month?
Are we talking about Japanese 151? I mean, right now, a lot of people I know are ordering it for 80s. Like that's kind of where
That's my point. Like, it's just, there's so much information. Like, and some of the information is right. Some people are lying. Like, I have people on my Discord saying, "Oh yeah, I got boxes for $50." It's like there's always so much sloshing around. It's like, I feel like with questions like this, we have to take like the open market that everyone and their brother can go order from, like eBay, because everyone's got a story of guys they know or friends in the business. They're ordering from Japan. They got a supplier. It's like, you never know what's true or what everyone's getting everything at. And if not everyone can buy all at one price, can it really be taken as a data point?
Yeah. I mean, here's how I look at it, right? If I say TCG player, yeah, it's hard, dude. Because you go TCG player Evolving Skies, right? You immediately say $700, but like Evolving Skies, you can probably find for like 650. But even then, if you say to yourself, how about this? How about this? We'll make this kind of a lot easier. What do you think is going to happen first? Do you think that Evolving Skies is going to hit $1,200 first, or Japanese 151 is going to hit $200 again? Which do you think is easier? We'll just go there.
Um,
We're almost giving a leg up to Evolving in this instance. because I'm valuing the booster at 600, and it's not like you're not going to see the price crash even further with 151. I'm putting it as the price is at 100, even though
Yeah,
you
I'll
can.
say this. I
You know,
think 151 has a better chance of doing it faster. I also think it's safer right now to put money in Evolving Skies.
that's yeah.
Because here's the thing: if everything happens the way everyone thinks it's going to happen, then yeah, 151 has a better chance of doubling faster. If this reprint's bigger than people think, and the supply is more than people think, and the demand isn't as much as people are expecting, whatever, there's a world where you buy it $100, $120 a box, and in another 4 months it dips down and then just makes it back to 120 bucks, and you're breaking even. So it's like where I don't think Evolving Skies is really going to dip is my problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think 151 is going to be fine long term. I don't think it. I mean, it's a fun question. I just don't think it matters. I think they're both good buys.
That's so hard. Because I think you said it correctly, which is Evolving Skies is safer, but Japanese 151 is more upside. I think that makes sense. Like, it depends how risky. What's your risk tolerance?
And that's me. Like, that's why I don't want to buy at these prices. Like, I don't want to buy a brand new set, a brand new box for like 2.5 to 3 times MSRP. Like, I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's why I stopped buying One Piece. I'm not paying $200 for a One Piece box out of the gate. Like, I'm just
So here's how I would answer this question then, for myself at least. I think that 151 at this point is more likely to double its price than Evolving Skies is, but ultimately at the end of the day, it is also one that is more likely to not stabilize. Whereas Evolving
yeah,
Sky.
and I'll say 151 maybe more likely to double, but 151 will also probably be more likely to be less expensive than it is right now next month and the month after that.
Yeah. So at what point are we saying 151 is going to have to double from, right? Are we saying a week ago, today, a week from today? Like,
If boxes drop down to 60, 70, then I'll say 100% 151. But
Yeah.
at like 120, which is like, I mean, I'm looking at like the open market, not like what people say they get behind the deal, backdoor deals and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Here's another question someone asked. Unified minds or unbroken bonds?
Unified minds.
Yeah. I get that.
I just feel like there's too many Gardevoirs out there. Like Gardevoir's always love, but like, and I get Sylveon Gardevoir, and it's got some other hits. I just feel like Unified Minds is a bit deeper, in my opinion.
I don't know. It's hard for me because, like, man. So Unbroken. Okay, I'm biased though. Here's the deal. I'm biased. Unbroken Bonds, cool set. They're both amazing sets. They're fantastic. Like, you got the Gardevoir Sylveon, super strong. You've got the Reshiram Charizard, super strong. You've got the Greninja Zoroark, super strong, right? If you're a fan of Machamp Marshadow, then sure, right? Unified Minds. Here's where I'm a little biased. I know they don't have the alternate art version for it, so it's definitely a little disappointing for me. But I'm a huge Giratina Garchomp fan. So this wasn't a question of which is more investable. This was not a question of which one do you like more. You just said Unified Minds or Unbroken Bonds. I'm going to go Unified Minds just because Garchomp is my favorite pseudo legendary. Giratina is my favorite legendary. So that's kind of just where I am with that. But, ultimately as well, you've got the Waifu Misty card. You do have Mew and Mewtwo. You do have the Mega Sableye T-Tar. You've got both the Raichus. I mean, you've got Pokemon in it that are desirable as well. Sure doesn't have the Charizard, but Mew and Mewtwo is a super strong combo. Like, I would argue that Mew and Mewtwo is stronger than Reshiram and Charizard just because Reshiram is not as of a fan favorite compared to both Mew and Mewtwo. So, yeah, I don't know. I like it more so than Unbroken, even though Unbroken's, I mean, they're both amazing sets.
And I will go back to that last question. So on eBay, unless you're buying it with no shrink wrap, it looks like about 110 is the market price right now for a sealed 151 Japanese booster box. So that's market price. Anyone can talk about like these Skir Dunks and like all these different, places they can buy, but eBay is the accepted like full market price. Like, so that's what I would take. I would say it has to go to 220 to double right now.
Vivid at 140, SV base at 80 right now.
SV base. I actually like SV base.
I'm going Vivid. I'm going Vivid.
You think Vivid's going to be 280 before SV base is 160?
Well,
That's
that
MSRP.
wasn't the question though. It says, would you get into Vivid at 140 or SV base at 80
Yeah,
right
so
now?
to double, that would have to go to 280, where SV base only has to go to 160 to double.
Well, but here's where my mind is, right? Because we're not having a conversation of which is going to double first. It's just a question of which would you want to get into right now. When it comes to Scarlet and Violet right now at $80 compared to Vivid Voltage, we've seen just the general performance of Sword and Shield era booster boxes. We have no idea right now what the future is going to hold for a lot of the Scarlet and Violet product. We're under the impression that there's not going to be another reprint for Scarlet and Violet base, which is more than likely at this point. But there's so much like up in the air just in general with Scarlet Vase versus with Vivid Voltage at 140. We've seen what a lot of the Sword and Shield era booster boxes have done. And whether it has an alternate art or not in it, people are going to do what people have always done. They're going to say, I want Sword and Shield for as cheap as possible. They go and look at the highest, most valued Sword and Shield ones. They can't afford it. They move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. Eventually, at some point, Vivid's going to be that, especially since it's already such a low supply set right now as it is. It's only a matter of time before something happens where it pops off like crazy and follows suit with a lot of the other Sword and Shield era boosts. It's kind of like the same game people are playing with Battle Styles right now. Like Battle Styles is said people are crapping on because it's the weakest of the alternate arts, but yet people are now hedging to get into it because they've seen the way in which, yeah, it might be the weakest, but eventually it's going to pop off as soon as people no longer want to get fusion or chilling because it's too expensive. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Battle Styles in today.
Huh?
I just got 2 more cases of Battle
Oh
Styles.
yeah, see, there's my point, right? So for me, it's like, sure, Scarlet and Violet base like $80 from a percentage perspective, like it could go to 88, it could go to 96. I mean, it could start to like rapidly approach, but we've seen the volatility of Sword and Shield so far, and I feel like it's so much safer knowing that it's not going to get another reprint. It's more than likely going to follow suit at some point with the volatility of Sword and Shield as it continues to mature and go out of stock. And if I am going to do the Scarlet and Violet base set play, I'm going to want to wait a little bit until we have some semblance of security, knowing that there isn't going to be more supply, considering the set is literally just now turning a year old this month.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down with the ship on Scarlet and Violet, man.
I know, but you've been pretty big on Scarlet and Violet, so I get it. You're a big Scarlet and Violet fan, so I get it. I get it.
I think Kevo's question about the serialized, like, how many would they have to, like, what would be a good serialized number? Like, I think 1,000 would be pretty good. You know, like 10,000 maybe too much. 100 might be not enough. I think 1,000 would be pretty good. Yeah, like he said, 100 too low, 10,000 too high. I agree. I think like 1,000 sounds pretty good on like a serialized card.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
I mean, I know sports does like all the way up, like 1, 10, 100. So like I know they do like all of them, but I mean, I just think like for Pokemon, you know, to not get like that crazy with it, where we're like all chasing the one ring, like Magic the Gathering, I think like 1,000 would be a pretty good serialized. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard for me to give an exact number in this because we have no clue like how much of the actual cards are being printed. Like Pokemon's like, we printed like 10 billion cards. That's crazy. But like how much is realistically being printed per set, you know?
Yeah.
Like what even was the one ring serialized number value? Like how many of thousands of cards were being printed and everything?
Well, because there was other cards that had serial. Like I don't pay attention to Magic. My problem is, but there were other serialized cards in there, and I don't know exactly. Anyone in the chat know exactly what those other ones were numbered to? Because I know that has something to do with it too. And that's why the boxes are still holding some sort of value and still doing well. I think because there are other hits.
Yeah. I don't know.
Imagine if every alt art in Evolving Skies, like however many alt arts there are, like what, 12 or something, all had 1 to 1,000. Like, so you knew they were all capped at 1,000. You knew that not all of them would ever be opened. So that means the total population reports would be capped under 1,000. And so the tens would be like real low. I mean, dude,
That'd be crazy. I didn't even think about it from that perspective. The caps at the PSAs. Oh,
yeah. And you know, none of them, they would not all ever get opened, right? There'd always be some sealed. And so the boxes would always have value basically forever. It'd be an amazing idea. I don't, just me, I guess.
I want to touch on this just because Kevo said this earlier, and I really like this point. People hated Sword and Shield sets when they first came out.
I don't know. That was like during the boom. Everyone was like hyped on Pokemon.
Dude, do you remember when Rebel Clash came out?
Yeah, dude.
Holy crap. It was insane.
People didn't hate. I mean, guys, dark, like you talked about Vivid and Darkness Ablaze, they were 150, 200 plus. Like Champion's Path went to over $100, got reprinted into the ground down to 50, went back to $100 plus. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I think people were pretty hyped.
Yeah, I think that, well, people were hugely hyped about Vivid. Hugely hyped. Vivid was insane when it first
Dude,
came
that
out.
Pikachu card, like, people don't get it. That was it. That was the hit. That was the hit before Umbreon.
Yeah, this might sound crazy for some people to say. One of the reasons one of my buddies got back into Pokemon was because of the Amazing Rares. He thought they were sick.
Yeah.
He loved
I
Amazing
always
Rares.
kind of thought they were going to be just another break or prism card or something like that.
Well, like I said before, it's crazy to say because a lot of people are like, no, they're just like a kind of rainbowish background. But like it was sick, especially too, because during that time, right? During that time, there was no other cards that you could pull that were in the secondary slot that were going to bring additional value since Cosmic. So that was something that was huge because, reverse rare spot pulling something was still a new concept. So now we look back on it and you're like, garbage, who cares? But same thing goes if you look at art designs for base set, hindsight's always 2020 with that. But yeah, who knows? We'll kind of obviously have to kind of see with that. It's kind of like the age-old question that has already been answered, right? Remember when people were having conversations with Brilliant and Evolving? And Evolving was at like $200 and Brilliant was like sitting at like 120, 130. And people were having the conversation saying, which would you rather have? I feel like a lot of the times the conversation would realistically boil down to, well, Brilliant is at 120. It's such a better buy at that price because it's so much cheaper. Like I feel like that's why you want to pick it up because there's such like similar in terms of like being great sets. Like obviously Evolving is a better set, like, but Brilliant is still the second best set, so it's going to perform well. And then ultimately at the end of the day, the gap that there is now between the two is ginormous.
I have a video on my channel, so it's like all documented. And I forget how long, maybe like a year ago now, where I did like a top 5 investment buys video type thing. And Brilliant Stars and Evolving Skies booster boxes were both on there, and they were similar pricing. It was after the reprint, and Brilliant Stars was on the market for like 1 teens, and Evolving Skies was like 120s, I think. And
really?
They were on the market at the same time. I think P Football Pete had them both like basically unlimited quantity, as much as you wanted to order. And that was the discussion, like which one do I pick up? Like,
yeah. Crazy. Yeah, you never know.
It's crazy.
So what do you, I do want to kind of ask this before we take another question. Where in your mind do you see Scarlet and Violet base going? Because do you have any concerns about it just being a base set in general, just since base sets have always performed worse?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the one thing that's got going good for it is that, like you said, there is a chance. I'm not saying a strong chance, but a chance it doesn't get reprinted, which will help. And the MSRPs are higher now, and so it's like $80 was a good buy in Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon and XY when MSRPs were lower. Like to getting in those boxes, like I got it like some for under 80, like 78 a box, where the MSRP is now 160. So all it has to do is get back to MSRP and I doubled my money. And if I see that happening realistically in 3, 4 to 5 years. And it's like, for me, I'm not as like looking for the crazy spikes like other people are. I look for like getting more gains in this than I could placing the money somewhere else. So I look at the market and I say, okay, I could put $480 in a case, or I could put $480 in an S&P index fund or a mutual fund. Which one's going to do better? You know, assuming it's not like a tax advantaged account, it's not a retirement, you know, just a regular brokerage account. And I'm thinking, I still think Scarlet Violet Base looks like it's going to double faster for me.
Maybe I'm looking at this from a different perspective. I think my fear is I see Scarlet and Violet Base being like battle styles in the context of like, if you looked and tried getting cute back when there was a reprint for battle styles, chilling, and fusion, you could have hit gold if you'd gone with the other two. And I look at it in that same regard when having a conversation between if I want to go pick up Scarlet and Violet base compared to the other Scarlet and Violet sets, such as like Paldea Evolved, right? So that's where I feel like the difference is for me. Because if you had asked me the question Vivid Voltage versus Paldea Evolved, I would have picked Paldea Evolved. But because I look at Scarlet and Violet base as like that like outcast of a set compared to the ones that are going to perform better in my mind, such as battle styles compared to chilling or fusion, I just get nervous that everything's going to, you know, pop off at some point in Scarlet and Violet, and it's going to be left in the dust in the same way that battle styles did.
Yeah, and I should probably like reference this by saying, like, guys, if you don't either have enough money or don't want to diversify, yeah, if you're like trying to pick sets, this would not be a set I would pick. For me, I started back in Sword and Shield, where I just said I am going to buy cases of every single set. I'm not going to worry about, you know, anything, because I just want to be diversified, and I'm not smart enough to know which sets are going to do what. And I mean, obviously, you're smart enough to know somewhat. But no, I mean, I will say I have the least Scarlet Violet base of anything else in the era so far, but I still do have some cases just in case type thing.
Yeah.
Just because you don't know. You just never know.
You never know.
But yeah, if I were to pick, I'd probably be like Paldea, and then maybe like some Paradox Rift, maybe some Temporal Forces. Like those three sets seem better to me than the other two, like Obsidian Flames and base right now. Just me.
Yeah. I just remember when I went back and I picked up battle styles, picked up chilling, picked up fusion, and then just seeing that battle styles be the one that sat, and then I said to myself, man, I could have easily gone up and picked other stuff. It just gives me PTSD. It's a tough one.
Yeah, and like, I mean, even like, again, Rudy, I've been watching some Rudy videos, and like even he said in like one of his recent ones is how people are, you know, he doesn't play that game, but other people like to. It's like always worrying about like, well, you could have put all your money in the Evolving Skies. You could have done all this. You could have just bought these sets. You would have done that. You could have sold here. Why didn't you sell at the top? You could have sold at the top, bought back in later, made other plays. It's like, you know, that's definitely true. Like if you are that engaged and you want to wheel and deal, do it. Like nothing against you. You're going to outperform me 100%. It's just with my strategy, like I'm busy like making other moves. I'm making plays with grading. I got my content. And so my investment is literally just to put away and not even think about it. It's almost like completely turn off my brain, and I just put money into it. I stick it away and I let it age. But if you're looking to like maximize your returns, there's a lot of other ways to do that in this hobby. Like especially, let's go ahead and shout out Eli's wholesale program. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that to maximize your returns. And so this is not the route you go if you're trying to maximize your returns in the hobby. This is the route I go for just like long-term investment growth.
Well, I mean, we might as well mention it since you brought it up then. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. And if you don't know about it already, we offer a wholesale program where you get access to our suppliers list. You get Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood at wholesale prices. Links down in the description below to join, or if you have questions or want to be a part of the community, make sure you check out the Discord. But yeah, no, I think you make a good point with that. Here's an interesting question as well we can take too. Do you guys think Paradise Dragona is going to be a hit in English, since we're in the topic, especially sets news, SIR, Rayquaza, Dragonite maybe?
Dude, I'm just, like I said it earlier. I'm just scared. I'm scared right now. I'm scared. Will I pick some up and hold? Of course I will. I'd buy some of every set. But I'm just afraid of specialty sets right now going forward. We'll see.
Really? I didn't know you were afraid of them in general going forward, but maybe that's because you're talking about it from like a hold investing perspective.
Oh yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna buy a bunch at the open. It's gonna be great. I'm sure the singles are gonna do great out of the gate and probably well. I mean, Paladin Fates has the strongest singles out of the whole era so far, even stronger than 151 on average.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's gonna be great to open, fun to collect. I think the singles are gonna do absolutely fantastic. They're gonna be high value, I'm sure, on a lot of them. Nothing but good things to say. But to buy cases out of the gate and hold them for the next 3 years, I'd be hesitant. That's all I'm saying.
All I can say is, dude, I'm just guessing, right? I don't know. I would not be surprised if in the wholesale program you saw 4,000 ETBs ordered for this set that were placed.
I'll be part of that.
I would not be surprised because for Paldean Fates, we had 2,200 ETBs that we got in total. So for me, that was a set that obviously was good, but it wasn't like hyped up. It was kind of seen as like a Shining Fates that had alternate arts, so it was like slightly better, but it wasn't like Crown Zenith. Everyone's like freaking out about it. For me, depending upon the way this set goes, which I mean, it's going to be a dragon set, it's hard not to think that the demand for this set's going to be crazy. So I'd be surprised if we didn't have at least, 3,000 ETBs placed on pre-order for us. That would be kind of my anticipation of what's going to ultimately happen. But who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I think if you're looking at it from a long-term perspective, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, where's 151 at right now? That's another question too.
About 60 in ETB, but again, so was Crown Zenith before it got reprinted.
Yeah, except the difference is 151 already got the reprint. That's the insane part. Because the set came out, and then literally we got word that there was going to be a second wave that was going to be placed for pre-order several months later, which is like an insane follow-up. Which, to be fair, like that's kind of what happened back with Evolving Skies. Like Evolving Skies went up like crazy, and then before you know it, there's more coming in, and then we see the price just skyrocket. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because there's in my mind there's gotta be another 151 reprint coming for English at some point. So yeah, to your point, like it's still risky because of that, especially depending upon the price you're picking it up at. I feel like that's another thing I need to take into consideration. Because from my perspective, I'm looking at it where 151 was like readily available at like 30-35, but that's just because of the program, obviously. So I'm taking it from a different perspective. But yeah, if you're going in and you're picking up 151 at like $50 and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna hold on it, I feel like you're gonna get burnt so bad. So yeah, to your point, I would agree with you.
What do you think about this? Is my opinion, but because of all the UPCs they already put out, I would speculate if they do reprint, it'd most likely be like ETBs and bundles. I doubt they reprint the UPCs again. What about you?
For 151? Oh yeah, they're gonna do it. It'd be the ETBs. I think it's gonna be the ETBs.
Bundles? You think they'll do bundles again?
No, I don't think so. I mean, have they realistically reprinted bundles before? Not that I know of, at least.
No, it just seems like it's a really good retail product. Really sought after. I don't know. Seems like it sells well.
It sells well, but it sells well because there's always a small supply of it, and they never reprint any more of it. That's why it sells well.
Hey, there's a good question from Damn. He like he had like a million of them, but at the very end he said, "Alex, do you have a price double, sell half, keep half type thing?" I'll give my answer, but I'd like to hear your answer first. Like when you are, building positions and moving kind of like longer term holds and stuff, not just what you're selling or flipping at the store. What's your usually mindset on when you like to start to sell out of positions? Do you have anything that you look for?
Hold on. Where's the question? How far up is it? Do you have the timestamp?
It's right above
the timestamp.
It's right above SDC and Horizon. Damn. It's like maybe 13, 14 comments up from the bottom. It says,
Alex, did he like spam a ton of questions?
Yeah, it's like his very last one. Like, Alex, do you have a price double, sell half, keep half?
Oh, I see.
So what do you feel like? Like, what do you look for when you're looking to move out of a position that you've been holding?
It's a good question.
Like, are you holding a lot of Lost Origins still?
I haven't sold any of it.
So what are you looking for there?
To open up the shop. See, I'm in a little bit of a different
Without the
situation.
shop, what would you have been looking for?
Oh, if it wasn't for the shop, I wouldn't be selling at all. I wouldn't be touching.
But like,
I
so
would be selling it.
what does your exit look like when you do sell things though? Like, what do you look for? Like what price points, what percentage gains, what do you usually base it off of?
See, for me, it's usually based off of when I feel like the volatility is going to slow down for the item. If I notice that the volatility of an item starts to kind of like wane, then I'll start to sell some of it. I'll still want to hold because, as we saw with Evolving Skies, if you sold it at 300, you would have been burned. If you sold at 400, you would have been burned. You sold at 500. Not to say that obviously Lost Origins is going to do the same thing, but ultimately, in my mind, my like first target point is $200. Like once it hits $200, I'm not going to be selling it, but my first target point of, all right, let's see how it performs at $200 and see if it stops here or if it's going to keep going up. And if it stops here and it goes sideways for like 4, 5, 6 months at 200, then I start to have a conversation with myself. All right, maybe it's worth selling some at 200 here because it just kind of stopped there. But ultimately, I could wait for 5, 6 months. It's sitting at, it doesn't sit at 200. Now it's at 250, right? Then I'm like, why am I going to sell? I'm just going to keep playing the volatility. And as I see it kind of, stay stagnant for like a 5, 6 month period of time where it's just gone sideways, 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 then I'll say, all right, I'm going to sell off some of the portion of the inventory that I have. And then I will slowly start to take that liquidity and put it into other investments. And it's one of these things where it'll happen progressively as time gets longer and longer, right? So if Lost Origin, for example, let's say 6 months from now, it's still sitting at its price point, or let's say it gets to 200 here in the next month or two, and then for the next 6 months after that, it's at 200, right? I'll probably sell about a third of it off, at least. I could potentially see myself selling half of it off, but that really is also going to be circumstantial based on the fact if there is something else that I see as such an amazing opportunity, then I start to say to myself, all right, I want to start selling off a lot more just based off of the opportunity that's presented, but I'm at least going to keep a third or anywhere between 2/3 to a third of Lost Origin, depending upon what the circumstances look like. So I'm selling off, but I'm still keeping at some point, just waiting to see where the kind of stopping points are for Lost Origin.
It's a good answer, man. Like that, and it's an answer that people don't like because it's not like an exact answer. Like, and I'm the same way. I don't have a metric like, oh, when the price doubles or when I reach X amount of percent. It's like you said. It's like I just pay attention to the market, the volatility, the liquidity of it. I kind of get a feel for the market. Like right now, in my opinion, I think it's stupid to sell Sword and Shield boxes. Like I just think they're also on an uptick. I think, the more investors stay unhappy with Scarlet and Violet, the more it's going to push money to those. As more and more start to go out of stock on Pokemon Center, it's going to push those higher. Like I think Evolving Skies, I did an analysis on my channel, and the numbers were, I'll shout Pokesun. She did all the numbers for me. Evolving Skies right now has almost the same singles value as Team Up does, and it's 1/3 the price. And it's got the most iconic card of the like the whole era of like modern times with the Moonbreon. And so it's like I see those continue to rise, and so it's like for me, I don't know an exact price or percentage gain because like Evolving Skies would have already hit that percentage game a long time ago, But I do agree. So when I do move out though, when I just hit a point where I want to move out, I always like to just get down to where I have a zero cost basis. So if I have, whatever that may be, I get down to where I have a zero cost basis. I take all of my money out. And then I also like to make sure I have somewhere else to put that money. Like wherever it's going to go, I want it to go to work somewhere else where I feel it can perform better than where it is now. So like if I'm going to sell Lost Origin, I want to make sure I can put that money like Eli to work in his business where it's going to earn more money, or into a flip where I think it's going to make more money, into another investment where I think it has a better track record going forward. You don't always have to get it right, which you're not going to, but as long as you feel in your mind that money is going to be better placed somewhere else, those are the things that I look for. And then anything that I save, like that I keep as like a zero cost basis, I like to keep it all long term. Sometimes like I just like to keep that money in the hobby. So sometimes I will trade like some of those older stuff, and like I'll try to trade it for other things I want, but I try to keep that money like in the investment or in the hobby. I don't like to like sell it and like keep taking money out. So that's where I like to be with things.
Well, one thing I also want to mention too that's important is, and I talked about this before, and this is, I think, one of the most important things to consider with all of this. When it comes to offloading the product or just the consideration of that, there are certain times within the year in which you historically will see a lot of these products go up in value. You will see that happen typically to start off the year. I was super confident in Lost Origin's ability to perform well because one, I just saw historically how well it's performed, but then two, going into it, in my mind, I said to myself, hey, holiday seasons are usually the best time to buy. And then following the holiday season is usually when you see that kind of increase in value, right? And so in my mind, when I say like 2 months from now, right? As we're going into, I mean, realistically, we're basically at the end of April. We've got about a week away till we're going into May, right? So in my mind, in July, if you see the price of Lost Origin or maybe even August at $200, and then going into this next, start of the year, 6, 7, 8 months later, where we're talking about going back to April, going back to March, going back to February of next year, if I don't see that kind of price adjustment with Lost Origin, that's where that consideration is coming into play. It's not necessarily that it's a 6-month marker. It's the marker that where we are right now from that kind of estimated time frame in my mind is when we would potentially see that regrowth, because as comes with the holiday season, a lot of things go on sale, a lot of things get reprinted, and so a lot of people start to focus on those specific items. And then once all of that's kind of flushed out, then people go to the go-tos, which is the more popular high demand items. So always take the time in which all of this is happening into consideration.
Agreed.
So we're about an hour and a half. I think we should answer one or two questions and then wrap it up here. What are your thoughts?
Question is, which questions?
Question is,
there are many. They are wide and many.
Yeah, we've had a lot of questions today. It's nice to see. That is nice. Here's one. So everything printed over the past 4 to 5 years has went up. What's your out price, or just going to sit on it forever? Where's the money coming from to keep cash flow going? I guess we kind of already answered this in an aspect. So do you feel like it's worth touching on it more, or do you think this is kind of good to touch?
Where's the money coming from? I mean, I guess either income from outside, of the hobby, or whatever, any businesses you're running inside the hobby, flipping product. So I guess it either comes from income, or it would have to come from flipping product and moving that money into something else.
Yeah, that's
everyone's lives can be different. I can't answer it like what you should do or anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you think buying out Tina V's in mass is a viable alternative to buying a ton of Lost Origin boosters? They should both go up at the same time, and you can most likely grade a few of the Tinas as well.
It's a hard time to answer that question. Like, if you would have asked me this 4 months ago when everything was hitting its lows, I would have said, I did. I made a video saying I think all these alt arts are good pickups right now. But now that they started to get properly valued, some you could start to argue are getting a little over, top heavy. I think they still have a little bit of a run left in them, though, in my opinion. But man, Garatina now, especially like the 10s are in the 700s, and the raw, I don't even know what raws are at now, like 300s or 400s. I don't even know. But it's hard now, right? After we've already seen this much of a move up, to say it's good for the Garatinas when Lost Origin BBs with the whole Pokemon Center thing about to sell out. Like, I had to stick with the BBs.
Yeah, I mean, the booster boxes just feel safer because booster boxes only come from one product, which is booster boxes. The Lost Origin Giratina comes from multiple different products. But, at the end of the day, you also have to take into consideration that in general, singles are also much more volatile. It's always so funny because there's like a chain of volatility, right? Like ETBs, then boosters, then singles. So there is a lot more volatility of upside when it comes to Lost Origin and Giratina. But you also have to think about this, right? The Lost Origin Giratina is just now catching up to its all-time high after the supply.
Hold on, I gotta respond to you, small fish. You just commented. Is it Alex turning on us, buying the alternate slabs? Now he's saying it's peaking. I'm not saying it's peaking. What I'm saying is I've basically slowed down my buying to a halt. I'm not the only any alt arts I'm buying now, or anyone that like reaches out to me wants to make trades or they're trying to just dump and they're trying to sell good amount under market to where it's like, if I can buy alt arts at like 80%, even like some 85%, I'm gonna buy them still. But I've definitely whereas like 2, 3, 4 months ago, I was just buying full market price. Like if I saw it was a clean card, or if I found a PSA 10 going low at auction, I just buy it, right? I was just buying them because I thought they were good pickups. But no, I mean, I think they still have some legs in them. I've already said I think there'll be a downturn eventually, as there are with all singles. But it's like, when's that downturn? It's like, let's say the Garatina's a $700 card today. It could run to $900, $1,000. And then it could see a 10, 20, 30% downturn to where, okay, now you're still at where you are now. Maybe you're still up a little bit. Like that's a very real scenario. But that's the issue. Like buying now is like, well, your risk level is higher now than it was 2, 3 months ago, where I think your risk level in a box makes more sense now.
Yeah. Well, and kind of going back on what I was going to say, you just look at the Giratina and the price history. It's just now going back to its all-time high. Or I don't even think, actually, wasn't the all-time high at one point like $400 for it? I mean,
it could have been.
It's at I know it's at 330 right now. We can't check on Pokédata because they now charge a monthly membership. But
I can check price charting.
Yeah, you can check the price charting on it. But I mean, if you look at the yearly on TCG Player, it's telling us that it's about as of a year ago, it just now is hitting the year all-time high, right? So for me, it's like, okay, well, Lost Origin is at 180. Like,
price charting is only showing 327.50 back May 2023. If that's right or not, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's showing the high.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You also want to think about it from a percentage perspective, right? If hypothetically speaking, you bought the bottom of Lost Origin at the reprint, some sites were selling them for like 110, right? Some sites, right?
For sure.
And you had marketplace groups that were selling it for 110. Have you made your money back on that? If we're just talking about it from a pure like numbers perspective, $70 from there, it's roughly around a 70% increase, like 66 or 67 or something like that, right? If you also did the exact same thing and you got the bottom, which was around 233, 234, according to TCG Player, and you're currently at that, new price point we are at currently, booster boxes are still outperforming the singles right now, just based on the numbers, right? So it's one of those things where, although I am a fan of the singles and you can see extreme volatility of the singles, what do you think realistically is going to happen first? Do you think Lost Origin, the booster box, which is at 180, is going to hit 360 first? Or do we think that the Giratina raw card is going to go to 700? Like, you know how crazy that sounds when you put it that way?
But on the flip side of that, though, right? I mean, not raw, but we've seen. I mean, I actually own multiple PSA 10s that have seen 80 to 100% increases. Like here, the Gengar. The Gengar from Fusion Strike has went from 400 in a 10 to now in the mid 700s. It's ending at in a 10, which Fusion Strike has not done that in the same time period.
That is fair, but that's also talking graded.
This is talking graded. That's why it's not fair.
Yeah. I'm just talking purely the singles. Otherwise, yeah, that's definitely something to take into consideration. So, I'm still going the booster there.
Same.
So, all right, one more question, then we'll kind of finish it up as the last one to discuss. Let's see. Oh, that's a funny one. I think we have to touch this one. I've slowed my Pokemon buying to a halt. Cryptocurrency spike affect the market. Japan yen in the toilet. I feel like this is a good one to talk about. I mean, crypto
the yen in the toilet is part of the reason I think the Japanese market's struggling.
I mean, here's the thing you have to ask yourself, right? This is funny to think about, right? So have you noticed the prices of the booster boxes more so recently with Pokemon? Obviously, they went up like crazy, right? We all know this. And we also all know as well that the price of crypto went up like crazy. Have you noticed what Bitcoin's doing right now? It's going sideways.
Yeah,
It's going sideways.
kind of coming back. Yeah, I think
It's
it's
going
back.
sideways. It went down to this last week. It went down to 61,000 and now it's at 67,000. It's just ping ponging. It's going back. Guess what Lost Origin's been doing for the past week? It's been going sideways. So
Should we start all like pumping crypto?
I don't. Well, no. That's not the point that I'm making with this. I guess the point that I'm making is like, I mean, Fusion is up at like 250 now. Last time we looked at it, it was at 240. So, it is going up. But I think the point I was trying to make with this is a lot of the like booster boxes that were like going up and they just were not stopping going up have now started to like go sideways around the same time that like crypto has gone sideways. I don't know. We just talk about the correlation between crypto and Pokemon so much. It's just always one of those things that's like kind of funny for me to see because last time we looked at Chilling Reign, it was selling for around 220. It's still sitting at 220. I mean, Silver Tempest, I don't know where that's at, but last time I looked at it, it was at around 140, 145. So
Same.
it's probably going to be around
real last question.
Okay, real last question. Yeah.
Delav Valhalla. You guys
scared?
It's like the fourth one up from the bottom. So you guys scared of Lorcana seems to be taking some of Pokemon to market. So another thing that happened when Medizu went belly up, it helped. It was like a very real correlation to a lot of the Pokemon market being helped by that. I think that all these different TCGs are definitely taking market share from other TCGs, right? You'd be stupid to say it's not having any effect. However, I think a lot of them won't stand the test of time. I'm not saying which ones won't, whether it be the Star Wars or the Dragon Ball Fusions or the Lorcanas or One Piece. I don't know which ones, right? But not all of them are going to stand the test of time. Test of time meaning like 3 to 5 years. And so what will happen is I think when eventually some of those do kind of wind down and start to like not see the player base or the collection, or maybe some actually fail and stop printing the cards, there will be a time where a lot of money will probably spill back into the main hobbies like Pokemon, Magic, and things like that. So I think it's actually good for the future because you see a ton of money still being spent in TCGs all around the board, which is awesome. In a time when supposedly the economy's bad, we're getting layoffs, no one can afford mortgages and food and all that, but people are still putting money into TCGs, debt's all-time high. So as the time goes on and some of these do make it, some do fail, the ones that fail and the ones that stop getting the attention, I think that money will make it back to the mainline ones, like, and one of those being Pokemon, which is bullish for the future even more.
What was the grading company that CGC partnered with?
Grading company?
Yeah, CGC, remember?
No, they are the grading company.
Right, but like they absorbed another, or there was like a buyout. What was the other grading company? You know what I'm talking about? It was big news. There was like am I tripping out? Or is there another grading company?
STC?
Was it STC? Okay. Here, I want to make sure I'm going to say this right. Is it
so they acquired Classics
CSG. That's what it was. It was CSG. So CGC Trading Company and CSG will combine to become the world's second largest grading card service.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that caused like the CGC to like rebrand their slabs with like the slab coloring and the designs and everything, right? My thing with that is, remember how like people were talking about that and they were like, hey man, PSA, hope you're shaking in your boots because they're coming for you.
I love those times.
I don't know. I look at it in the same regard with like Lorcana and other stuff. Like,
oh yeah, great analogy. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not scared. PSA is still top dog.
What's funny too is when people like they try to show these price points of boxes, it's like I don't know. It'd be like showing a price point of like some low cap stock or some stock that has like barely any shares outstanding, and it go to like $100 a share and being like, I don't know, man. Like, you got like Microsoft over here, not even or whatever they're trying to compare it to. It's like, guys, if Pokemon printed the amount of product that like Star Wars or One Piece or Lorcana printed, these boxes would be $500 a box. Like there wouldn't be anywhere near enough to go around. Like, and then on the flip side of that, if any of those companies printed anywhere near the product that Pokemon prints, those products would all be worthless. You would see $50, $60 boxes. Like
I was talking to someone about Flesh and Blood, and they have like connections with some of the largest buyers of Fab. And I was like, so what does like that look like? And they're like, yeah, he's ordering like a couple of pallets every new release. He's like one of the biggest buyers of Fab. And in my mind, I'm like, so what you're telling me is like top 3 buyer of Fab within the entire space. He's ordering like 2 pallets. I'm like, dude, I'm ordering like double, triple that on new set releases for Pokemon. And I am like one of the largest buyers within our part of the market, but that's like Southwest region of our distributor, right? We're not even talking about, East Coast, talking about Midwest. I mean, there is so much.
You're not talking about how many people are even like maybe not what you're doing, but close to what you're doing. Like there's so many people ordering a pallet or more, a Pokemon out there where it's like those people ordering Fab, that those are probably like a few people that are even ordering anywhere close to a pallet,
Yeah, it's like, listen, we're a big player, but you start to realize more and more that as you grow and become a bigger player, how really small you still are compared to like the gap between other people. Cause like we did 2.1 last year and we've done 1 million so far within our first quarter as a wholesale program, right? And that's fantastic, right? We're on track to do 4. And that'll put us at the number 2 buyer within our region, which is fantastic, right? But like ultimately at the end of the day, there's still companies that are like doing double that, triple that, quadruple that. And it's just like, whew, still got a long ways to go, So it's crazy to think about.
Yeah, I just think that's such an understated, topic is the amount of product Pokemon prints compared to other companies. And so like comparing boxes, like prices is literally like comparing stock prices, like the actual ticker pricing, like without looking at the actual market cap of the companies and like how many shares are outstanding compared to that stock price. Like people aren't digging that deep. They're just saying, well, that box is worth 200, Pokemon's worth 90. So obviously it's not popular.
Yeah, seriously, dude. All right, man. I think that's it. We went for 1 hour and 40. It's a good one to wrap up on. Anything you want to say before we say goodbye to everyone?
Check out Eli's wholesale program, guys.
Hell yeah, baby. Check out Eli's wholesale program. We're looking for new buyers.
Oh, I do have something. Can I shout out something for me?
Of course. No, just all right. Thank you guys. Bye. No.
Box break this Thursday. We're breaking breakthrough this week, guys.
Man.
If you want to chase the Mewtwo's, show up Thursday night on my channel.
Breakpoint box break on Nostalgianomics channel. If you guys don't already know about him, which hopefully you should at this point, his link's down in the description below to check out his channel. But yes, as always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for stopping by, supporting the channel. Really helps when you leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Helps the engagement. And as far as it goes, if you want to, get access to Pokemon Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, so much more at wholesale. Like Alex said, check out the wholesale program. Links down in the description below. Be a part of the community, or if you got any questions, make sure to join the Discord and check us out, folks. But all right, everyone, have a good rest of your Tuesday. Peace.